Hello and welcome to this James the Bike Guy, where in this video we're checking out the brand new frame set from Giant that updates their endurance road bike. That's right, in front of us here is the brand new Giant Defy Advanced. Now, this bike has been in Giant's lineup for quite some time and marks a really important position that Giant is putting their endurance road bikes into that we'll get more into later on. So let's check this bike out. All right, beginning with the Giant Defy, I want to lay out where this bike falls into Giant's lineup, and then also where this bike is compared to some of the other bikes that are in the marketplace. Now, the Giant Defy is what Giant classifies as their endurance road bike. And that means this bike is designed for long-haul days. It prioritizes both speed and comfort over just about anything else in the mixture of what a road bike can do. And in Giant's own lineup, the Defy sits as that endurance bike where it's slightly more upright in the front end, slightly shorter in reach, and has a slightly longer wheelbase than what you'd get with the Giant TCR, which is their performance race bike. But also, this integrates carbon fiber and a whole bunch of comfort features that add to the endurance capability when you compare it to, say, the aluminum Contend in Giant's road bike lineup. Now, this also means that this bike is going up against the likes of the Specialized Roubaix and the Trek Domane as far as endurance road bikes. And so there's a lot of steep competition in how they're adding compliance to the front end and the back of this bike. And that has to be one of the things that I think Giant has really taken to with this Defy in 2024, is really putting performance first over some of those additional features that you might see added to a few bikes. If we just look at this from a distance, you'd be hard-pressed to check it out and notice that it looks anything different than, say, their TCR or any of the other, race bikes that are out there today. Aside from a slightly higher handlebar position, it is really sleek. And Giant is getting that done via things like this integrated cockpit, which runs through their proprietary stem that then will run the cabling all internal to the frame, so it keeps things nice and slick. They've got a really chiseled front end to this bike as far as the way everything gets integrated, real nice and tight, but you can see there's some additional clearance over prior bikes in Giant's lineup. It still is rocking a press fit bottom bracket, and then when we go out back, you start to see some of the other chiseling that they've done to this bike with really thinning out the seat stays to almost have a stiletto type thin seat stay shape. It's a little wider in the back cross section, and it's almost triangular as it comes out, which is going to allow more flex in the back end to help absorb some of the bumps from coming up through the frame. Now, this being the advanced version of the frame, this is going to have some lightweight technology to the carbon, and in fact, it's saving a ton of weight over the prior generations. In Giant's own lineup, the Defy series is going to come in 3 levels. The advanced frame that's here, the Advanced Pro, which rocks the same frame but a lighter version of the fork, and then of course you have the Advanced SL. And starting from the Advanced SL frame and fork setup, you're talking a 785 gram frame and only 345 grams for the front fork. In the Advanced Pro, we're now talking an 860 gram frame, still quite light, with a 345 gram fork, the same as what you had on the SL. And then the Advanced, which is what's in front of us here, has an 860 gram frame and a slightly heavier fork at 381 grams. And that fork and frame setup, even on just the standard advanced level version of this bike, puts it in over 120 grams lighter for frame and fork than the outgoing generation, which when we compare to some of the other bike brands that are out there, it's interesting that they're able to be bringing down the weight, and that's because they're foregoing some of the more specific add-ons to the frame. For instance, there's no integrated frame storage in this bike, just a traditional down tube, and in the back end where the seat post attaches, there's no dedicated mechanism or hinge to be able to allow the rear end to flex. Instead, they rely on a dropped seat stay from the top tube, and then their defuse seat post, which you can see the defuse seat post is actually flat on the back, and that allows for the seat post to flex backwards. On the SL version, they even have one that's kind of scalloped out, which adds even more flex to the back end. And then up front, instead of running a suspension system in the steer tube like some other brands, they are then using their defuse steerer and a defuse handlebar. Now that means that this is a standard 31.8 clamp. This bike is coming with an aluminum handlebar, but on some of the other models where it has a carbon handlebar, that defuse handlebar is going to add about 40% additional compliance over the outgoing generation of the Defy. So it's really just dialing some of those things in one of the more efficient ways. May not have quite as much impact as suspension in the front end or a pivot in the back, but it's dialing in those additions, saving some cost, and also allowing it to save weight. Now, one other thing that I think Giant has really specifically called out with this bike, and that's going to be their decision to keep a modest tire clearance. Now, the bike does come stock with 700 by 32 millimeter tires. It does have clearance up to 38 millimeter tires, which is shy of some of the other bikes in this category, which might even go to 40 or 42. But it's still an increase over the prior generation's 35. And in fact, something I call out because they're keeping the focus of this bike from, blurring the lines into the gravel world where they have their own model, the Giant Revolt, and instead continuing this bike as a true road bike. A few other things to mention. Of course, it's interesting that they're coming with bottle cages stock, kind of nice to see. And then on the advanced version of this bike, it's going to be the most affordable in the $3,300 range. So it's a pretty nice part spec considering the price, of course, and some of the upgraded technology that's in this bike. But if you're anything like me, you're really going to be interested in what this bike comes in and weighs. And the actual weight for the Giant Defy Advanced in a medium large is going to come in and weigh 19.74 pounds. Well, thanks so much for joining me on this video to check out the 2024 Giant Defy Advanced. Go ahead and let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. While you're at it, be sure to hit subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.